Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Money Matters. My name is Nev, and today we're going to be talking about, all kinds of things, decentralization, and why that could potentially be the future for, everything. And when I say everything, I mean, I really actually mean just about everything from internet to money to payments to free speech. If we're going to preserve it, all of that is going to have to happen. And I will explain exactly as to why and how. We're also going to be talking about how sometimes the governments and the people make really bad calls, and it feels good at the moment. However, down the line, it doesn't work. And I'm sure you can probably think of a few that you've experienced wherever the heck you are, because I can tell you just about everywhere. I've lived from East Coast to West Coast, all the way down south. The only place I did not live in the United States is the middle part center of the whole thing. For whatever reason, I just never made it over there. I've lived in Europe. I've traveled pretty much all of Europe, all of Northern Africa. So I've been places, and I will tell you, everywhere I've been ever, and everyone I talked to, which I'm so blessed to have friends all over the world. I hear the same stories. So it doesn't matter whether you're United States, whether you are in, in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, in Asia. Same story everywhere with, folks fun. Anyways, I'm going to stop yapping, but today we're going to be discussing, obviously, what's going on with crypto, what's been happening. As you know, that Bitcoin actually has gone up quite a bit. We're going to be also taking a look at what's been going on with some of the free speech stuff and what's happening over there, how decentralization can potentially solve some of the problems. And so if you're brand new, hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're not brand new, welcome even more. And if you haven't done this yet, well, do subscribe, and let's do this. All right, y'all. Well, what is today? Tuesday? Yes, it is. Oh my gosh, it's Tuesday. It's almost half of January is over. Can you believe it? So happy Tuesday to you. I hope you're doing splendidly early in the morning. So what's been going on with the markets? Well, Bitcoin and, the rest of the market as well have been doing all kinds of fun stuff. We had this sort of like a kaboom down and then kind of kaboom back on up. And it's been very exciting. Look at this. Bitcoin is actually up 2.5% in the 24-hour period, and you can actually see the chart right here that kind of like came up on this little hill, came back on down. We hit about 30,000 plus minus 29 something, 30,000, and started to come back up. Now we're going to be taking a look in just a moment of where does this actually go? Where can we expect this puppy to go? Is it going to like continue going on up? Is it going to, go a little bit sideways? Like, what are some of the different scenarios that we have, and how do we best prepare for it? Ethereum has also bounced. It's up slightly over zero, so 0.3% in 24 hours, and it's currently trading at $1,095.09. Thank you very much. We did go below 1,000, so it was like 900 something yesterday, and of course we bounced back on up. Tether. XRP dumped big and is back on 29 cents. So of course they have all kinds of different problems and challenges other than just these minor sort of normal bull market kabooms that just sort of happen. And you have to have a stomach for crypto. I'm sorry, you have to have a stomach for crypto, and you just, they didn't call it hodl for no reason, because I'll show you some of the stuff that I think it's going to bring a lot of perspective, especially if you were not here in the last bull market, because it is not a smooth ride. Okay, it's not a smooth ride. It's a fun ride, but it's not a smooth ride. Litecoin is actually still down $140. Cardano actually moved to 28.8 cents, up 7.6%. So that's a really nice one. Bitcoin Cash slightly down. Polkadot slightly up. Stellar up, right? All right, so let's take a look at the biggest winners. We do have some coins that have actually pumped nicely. Most of them are altcoins. Nano 27%, iOS 18, Quant 18, Avalanche 15, almost 16, Solana 15.5, Compound 15 exactly, Stellar 13.7, Bitcoin Gold 13, Maker 11. So we do have some winners in the last 24 hours. On the losing end, nothing on the big side of things, but we did just finish the big old dump season. Well, I don't know that the season is done, but the short-term sort of like kaboom that happened over the last couple of days. Bitcoin Cash ABC is the biggest one, down at negative 9%. Empty set dollar negative 6. Dogecoin negative 5.4. Dash negative 4.9. 0x negative 4.7. Ontology negative 4.6. You're catching on. There's not a whole lot of the loser side. I mean, yeah, there's some, but again, nothing spectacular on this end whatsoever. Now, one of the things that I think is very interesting to note is that while we were experiencing this whole like, up and down, some of the individuals were like freaked out, jumped out. Then they saw Guggenheim sort of like tweet and were like, oh, the Guggenheim is getting out. Like, if Googers are getting out, then I gotta get out. So they did. But what happened with institutional investors and some of the smarter money, some of the, they call them strong hands. And you were like, I work out all the time. I have strong hands. No, not that kind of strong hands. I'm talking like financially strong hands, meaning you have quite a bit of cash sitting beside you, forward, in front, that kind of stuff, that kind of strong hands. And they were just chilling, man. They were like, whatever, it's coming. I'm enjoying myself. I'm not even watching the darn market. And you know what? If I wasn't doing the show, I don't know that I would be watching the market either. So you kind of come in and, the emotional component of the trading, interesting piece is everybody wants to kind of go in and learn, like, how do I trade and stuff? And some of the stuff, I mean, I share here with you right here on the channel. And I will be showing you some of the stuff anyways of very easy and understandingly simple, like technical analysis stuff that you can use, anybody can use. That's the easy part. That's not hard. Everybody thinks that that's the hard part. That's not. This is the hardest part, because you show up to the market and it does what it did, over the last couple of days, and you flip out because you were like, holy mackerel, I just lost, $100, $200, $100,000, whatever it is. I don't know. It's, you were like, oh, I gotta get out. So then, as it comes, keep on going down, your emotions get crazy. So you start pulling the damn thing out. And then meanwhile, it starts turning back on. And you're like, do I go in? Do I not go in? What do I happen? Then you wait, then it comes back up. And this is what most people end up doing. Can I show you what most people end up doing? I think you already know, because you were like, yep, I've seen it, right? So the market kind of does this, and then does this, and then it does this. This is horrible drawing, I know. And then what happens, right? Well, the not so strong hands, right? They buy here, they sell here, right? Then they buy here, then they sell here. Then they buy here, then they sell here, or they sell here, right? So that's that's what ended up happening. And then you have the what it's called, the smart money, the intelligent investor, as I like to call them, the strong hands, as they call them. And they buy here, and they buy here, and they buy here, they buy here, they buy here, they buy here, right? And when do they sell? Well, they sell right around this area, and this area, and this area, and this area. So you're catching on that the smart money ends up basically selling when the not so smart money starts coming in and ends up buying. So anytime, as I always keep on saying, anytime you see a parabolic thing go straight on up, it's going to have to come back down sooner or later. So just a little bit of patience. Just, do your if you're into that stuff, right? If you're not, then learn to get into it. Chill out, learn to breathe, learn to walk away, learn not to obsess. Just give it a moment. It will change, it will switch, and you will be just fine. So of course, you have to stay unemotional about the Bitcoin and going up or going down. You get too excited about that puppy going up, you're going to be buying when you're not supposed to be buying. You get too emotional about, price going down, you're going to sell when you shouldn't be selling, So anyways, that's just kind of how it is. Now, what actually happened, right? So here is what actually happened. Well, and folks are saying like, it's really hard. Like, there's some potential conspiracy theories. Are they true? Are they not? Who knows? That's why they're called conspiracy theories, right? But what happened, right? Well, we were doing this nice big old like going on up, right? Like chakunk, 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 right? Going all the way up, hit about 42, and then it started to turn. And as you can see, started to turn kind of slow and then faster and faster and right, kind of turned around. We hit about, 30,000 plus minus. We did come back down quite a bit. And what's happening? Well, they're saying this feels like it was a little bit of manipulation and setup. Was it? Was it not? I don't know, honestly. I don't have a horse into that. My biggest horse is protecting myself and my investments, right? But what they're saying is that Guggenheim said, time to take money off the table. And we actually covered it right here on the show yesterday, where they were talking about it and all of those things. But the important piece that I probably have failed to mention is that the company is still awaiting permission from the U.S. regulators to enter the Bitcoin through the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. So it's kind of interesting that we're like, oh, take the stuff, but they're not in. So of course, some of the traders are saying, not cool, man, because what it did is freaked out some of the new folks getting into the market and saying, well, if they are selling, then I gotta be selling. They didn't even buy. They didn't even buy. Again, it's always a good time to take some money off the table. Some money off the table. Yes, I will agree. So you have to come up with your own strategy, whatever the heck is going to be. So when you see something like this, right? Like when you pump up and you come up and say that you bought here at, I don't know what this level is because I can't see it on the screen, but say you bought at 20,000, right? And it comes to 40,000. Taking a little bit off is fine if you are on the trading end of things. Now, if you are a long-term hodler and you believe just like me that this Bitcoin thing is in next 5 to 10 years going to go to like hundreds of thousands, if not even millions, it doesn't matter. All of this stuff is noise. It's just absolutely noise. It goes up and down. You're like, buy, walk away, move on with your life. But if you are on the trading end, then you watch the charts and you're like, all right, this is the time when I buy, right? Kind of hold. Oh, time to sell. Oh, time to buy, hold. Oh, time to sell. All right, I sold it over here. So you play the charts and you play the stuff if you want to do that, right? So what they're saying is, well, two major exchanges, Coinbase and Kraken, we're basically seeing outages. And these are normal. This happens every single time. Everybody knows it. If you've been in crypto for longer than like a week, you already know Coinbase is specifically bad about this stuff. Kraken, I haven't heard as many things. It happened last time. I haven't heard as many bad things about Kraken, but Coinbase, super bad, super bad. Anytime there's a little bit of an uptick in a volume on the price up and especially on the price down, Coinbase nowhere to be found. So you might want to have multiple trading platforms. And heck, once you get into crypto, maybe getting into a DEX might make more sense because I am yet to hear of them having problems. Now, the part of the challenge is that, these are some of the ways to get from your fiat into the crypto. So you can't do that really on a DEX. You have to get into crypto first, and then you can transfer into other things. So just few thoughts for research, for things for you to consider. Now, of course, they saw the outages, but there was another problem that happened with Coinbase. Coinbase partially failed, and when things were actually starting to go on the sell, it was registering the sell signals, right? So if I as a trader go in and I put in like, all right, sell, they registered that and they would sell it. But there were, of course, people on the buying end. And the challenge is it didn't register any of the buys. So what happens? Well, if you only see the sell but you don't see the buy, what happens next? Well, the price kind of has to go down, right? Like, it's a simple calculation. Just like if it registers buy but not sell, the price goes bananas up. So this pulled down the index price that future exchanges use to calculate leverage funding, wreaking bearish havoc on speculative markets. And so that's kind of what ended up happening in this one. Now, that's at least what they're reporting that has happened. Again, I don't know how much of it is true. I don't know what, I mean, obviously I do understand that, yes, we've seen some of the moves, we've seen some of the challenges. And that's, that's kind of where things have been. And I get all of that stuff. Now, before we get on with any other news components, I want to share something with you. So hold on, let me switch my screen and you can take a look into this stuff. So what you're looking at over here is something very interesting. I was playing around, obviously, with the charts yesterday, and I wanted to kind of share something with you. So if you take a look at down here, you will notice that we are in 2017. And you were like, why are we in 2017, Nav? Why did you go back in history? Because there are lessons that we can all learn from it. And it has to do with the bull market that we have seen in 2017 that I want to share here with you today. So here is what we're seeing, right? You see this little blimp over here? I think that that's where we are, because there's a lot of similarities. I'll show you in a moment. And then you tell me whether there are or not. So this basically, timing-wise, you can see that it started to go bananas right before Christmas. And it basically ended January 4th. Pretty similar dates. I'm sorry, call me crazy. Then it started to dump up until January 12th. Right, 11th, 12th, then it started to kind of go back on down. And when we look at the dumping action, we will see that it was about, I don't know, this was about 35% dump plus minus, right? It's not 100% accurate. So, and it took about 7 days. So that's kind of what has happened. Now, when I zoomed out, right, I mean, you're just going to see something very similar, right? We had this super low back in 15, then 16 was kind of boring. Then it started to kind of like, June, July, August kind of came really fun. Then we had this sort of down. And then in October, we started to pick up steam with going parabolic in November, December, only to come back and basically crash in January. And that's kind of where things have ended. Now, this... let me mark it over here for you, because I think it's going to be really hard to see it once we zoom out. So let me do this, and want to make it, let's make it pink, hot pink, fuchsia, I think it's called, fuchsia. Okay, so you'll see it over here. This is the part that we just looked at. Now, I'm going to zoom out. Zooming out. Whoa, right? Yeah. So remember the crazy thing that has happened back in 2017 and stuff? This is that piece that we just talked about. Like, it's it disappears. It literally disappears on you. Now, is it similar? Okay, let's go and take a look. Let's come to 2020. Hello, 2020. Okay, so here we go. We have something very similar, right? We go into 2019. We kind of had this down on dip, right? That's that 2015. 2019 kind of turns a little bit exciting. Then it goes sort of down, and kaboom, nothing happens, right? And then, hold on, I got to do this, right? And so March hit super low. We kind of come back. We go sideways. Summer comes in. Right? July, August, we kind of go back up. We come back down, which PS, by the way, if you were just to flatten this out, it would just be nice, sort of smoother ride, but that's not what happened. And then we hit into the October, and that's when we actually started going parabolic up. And then, of course, what happened? Well, you come in over here to the most recent piece, right? And we had the market kind of kept on going up. Then we come in January 8th, so slightly later. January 8th, we hit the top. We come back down, and we are looking at a down movement of, I don't know, 28%. over the course of 3 days. So slightly shorter, slightly smaller, but very similar blip. So that was an interesting piece that I'm like, wow. So if that is true, right? If that is true, that this right over here, this guy right over here is same as that guy, what does that mean for the rest of the market in 2020? I mean, sorry, 2021, because we switched over to 2021, right? So that's an interesting piece to at least consider. Will it play out that way? Will it not? I got no clue, right? So that was one of the first sort of things that I looked at and kind of considered of like, is it possible? So that's one of the options that I think it is. The other option is to kind of go back to what we talked about yesterday, but I want to make sure I spend a moment and consider looking at something. All right, we're going to get rid of this guy because that was first component of what is possible. So another piece that we also know is that, you know, we are very cyclical and we follow Elliott waves, and we covered that yesterday, like I said, and you can see right over here. So prior to, you know, this is the part that we just talked about. You see this little blimp right here where basically the X line is. That's what we just talked about. So we kind of had, that was the December into January, then January into March is basically the second kind of rise, and that's when we started going into the waves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we were to then say, well, maybe this is wrong, and this is the true, like, phases 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is where we are, you can also see of what has happened, right? So what you see happening is you see phase 1 kind of goes chugger, 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 comes back up, dumps, then you have a second, right, phase on up. So that's the third. So this is 1, 2 is always down, 3 is up, 4 is always down, and then 5 is up, right? So that's on the upside. On the downside, it goes the opposite direction. But right now we're looking at the upside. So if you take a look into that stuff, right, you will notice some of the very interesting pieces, and you'll see some of the very similarities between stuff. So we go down 42%, right? In this one, we go down 42%. Interesting, right? And then we go bananas up, right? But it's an interesting component to see nonetheless. And you will also see that we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then kind of come back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then come back down. I mean, right? Like, so when we were talking about the Elliott stuff yesterday, you can see it right now very, very easily here, right? You can see it 1, right? And 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it does the same thing on the way down. So I'm gonna delete this stuff because it's one too many lines and it's hard to follow. So that's kind of where the interesting piece is. Now the part that makes me think it's the timing piece, oh, sorry about that. The part that makes me think that it's not, that we're not necessarily possibly here, is the fact that we're really following this part, and our little dump thing is not happening. But if we are, then here is kind of where we potentially are, right? So this will be then 1, 2, 3. Then it means, if that is the truth, then it means that this number 4 is not completed. This number 4, what we've seen as a dump, is not done because we've only dumped a much smaller amount than we should have. We've only gone down, excuse me, we've only gone down 27, let's say 28%, right? That's not big enough dump, which lets me know that there is a few different things that we could think of and consider. One of those things to think through is that potentially, one of the options is that we start forming a triangle of sorts, right? And that we basically go something like this, right? We go back, you know, up this way, come back down, up this way, come back down, and really create this triangle pattern that could be very, you know, very big. Is that possible? Sure, absolutely possible. So that's one of the options. the other option is that this goes up a little bit, it comes back down, it goes up and it comes back down, and now it hits this mid to high 20s level, and that's where it hits the true bottom, and then it actually starts the leg on up. I think that this particular pattern is a much more likely scenario than the previous one. Now, I have no clue how this is going to turn out, right? So if the triangle piece, well, you'll have to wait. You'll have to give it a few days, and you'll watch what's going on and just pay attention, right? So this is a high potential because, again, just like Elliott waves go up, we talked about the big Elliott waves and the little Elliott waves. It does this as well, right? So this is what it looks like. Then inside of this thing, you have, inside of this thing, you have the little guys that do the same thing, right? And so where we have been is we've covered, the big guys, is that the small ones are not happening. So if we could go potentially triangle and then just break on the upside, we could continue to go back slightly up, then get some new lows. I think this is a much more likely scenario, and I also believe that this right over here is a much healthier case scenario. That's the one that actually would give the next leg on up more power, stronger power, and a much stronger and better bullish trend. Now, again, I have no clue how it's going to play out. My crystal ball broke years ago, so I have no clue. But this is one of the options. The third option that is also very much an option is that this is the bottom and we started to recover, right? We did hit that 30. We started to recover. You saw the charts, and that from here we just kind of go up, hit the brand new highs, and continue going up, which I don't think is a likely scenario. If we hit on up, I don't think we're going to get this second arrow. What I think might happen is that we might go, we have to go sideways. We have to go sideways, else it's going to overheat yet one more time, and it's not going to be good. So we'll see how it's all going to play out, but these are my sort of three scenarios that I kind of see happening inside the market. And, these scenarios are something that I will be watching over the next few days and weeks because I just have a hard time believing that this was it, right? I have a hard time believing that this was it, that, the price movement and stuff, that this was that cleanup, because typically they last a little bit longer. There hasn't been enough pain, right? Like, it's sort of like, okay, it happened too quickly that, when the markets sort of go through this purge, for lack of better terminology, the purge is very, very much stronger, much longer, to really sort of eliminate some of the weak hands and do consolidation so that it could shoot on up. And it just wasn't big enough. If we follow that we are within, that we are completing the second sort of wave that we were in a fourth wave of a downward cycle of Elliott. Now, if we were this sort of like that early kind of following, maybe this is the part that we could see happen. Now we've sort of hit that. We're going to go slightly on up, slower into, February, March, and then kind of come back down again, and then start the ascent for summer and into the fall for the big ending crescendo. So that's sort of the way that I see it right now. It's just sort of like the starting of the movie, right? And it's just the introduction titles, right? Like, you saw James Bond run, there's gunshots happening, he jumps into the car and hits the first cash can, like the trash can, right? That's kind of where we are in the movie. Like, the credits are starting to roll, so the interesting pieces and developments are only going to come as we continue going through 2021. Now, I did talk about the fact that we're going to be talking about the need for decentralization. And so I'll be sharing some stuff again that may or may not be super popular with you or with other folks, but there is a point to it. You may or may not have heard that we had Ron Paul that actually has been blocked by Facebook for violating community standards. And this was basically coming in and happening. Now, you may like Ron Paul, you may not. You may, be his fan, you may not. I personally like the guy. But again, I don't know him. Like, I just like what he stands for when it comes to the politics and the finance and that kind of stuff. So he was actually blocked by Facebook for violating community standards. And he was basically putting in his Twitter that's saying like, hey, there's no explanation. It's saying that repeatedly going against community standards, but we've never been warned or any of that stuff. And as somebody who's been slapped by Facebook more than once and is permanently slapped for some stuff, I can tell you, they don't give you a heads up, and you can't reach anybody. And depending on who you get different versions of the story, or as I like to call them, different lies or different truths, whichever one you choose to believe. And so anyways, there was something that he posted about the whole, like, how banning the people from the internet is not the right way to do things because it violates free speech. So what happened? Well, you likely know that back in a couple days ago, right, Trump basically instigated a riot, which ended up taking over the Capitol and really vandalizing, people dying. It was really ugly, and it was really irresponsible, right? And I think there's courts for that. I think there's the impeachments and the voting and all of that stuff for that, like, whatever, right? It's politics. You can agree with it, disagree with it. That is not what I'm trying to do here. What I'm trying to explain is that we are starting to see that platforms for speech, for communication, are basically, because they're so big, they're so centralized, they have their own beliefs and their own motives and their own things that they are, excuse me, blocking folks. So Twitter basically said, goodbye, Trump. We don't like you, shut down. So they closed him off, right? Facebook basically said, once you're no longer president, you are out of our sight. Then I will share with you some of the additional pieces of what has also happened, but it has to do with the rest of the sort of the decentralization. So they shut him off. Ron Paul basically writes about it in his blog, and then shares the blog link on the Facebook with folks. So they basically say, X-nay, goodbye, done. So they basically shut him off. So that's sort of the communication piece that we are seeing now happen from Facebook, from Twitter, and from Google. You will see it in the morning, as well as the Amazon. And so I'll share with you the whole piece of what I have found, because this is the part that is becoming very, very scary. Because, right, like, today's Ron Paul, and you may hate him, so you're like, who cares? And it's Donald Trump, and you're not a Donald Trump supporter, so you're like, that's right, he needs to go because I don't want to hear his voice and opinion, and he's wrong, and I don't like him. That's fine, right? But at some points, it's going to be you, right? It's kind of like that poem, right? Like when I can't remember who wrote it, but it was the whole piece. And I, used to teach this at the universities and colleges around the world, or around the U.S., not the world. I apologize. But I did have students around the world. So there goes that. Anyways, when the Nazis came, for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for the blacks, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't black. And then they came for women. Well, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a woman. And then they came for the shop owners. Well, I wasn't a shop owner, so who cares? And then they came for this. And then they came for me, and there was nobody to speak out. Right? This is the kind of problem that we're seeing, and I've been sharing about this stuff since March, and maybe that's the reason why I'm being banned from everything, because I believe in ability to have free speech. I don't know that I like the hate, but again, we have laws for that. We have courts for that. We have solutions for that stuff, rather than just me not liking your rhetoric and basically shutting you down. Like, if I don't want to listen to you, I just don't go to the channel. You don't want to listen to what I have to say? Don't watch. Don't listen. I'm okay with that. So what happened else? Well, so now we're starting to weaponize social media platforms, right? But then Stripe actually joins the tech platforms booting President Trump from their services, and they're actually preventing him from being able to use Stripe. Now, if you don't know, Stripe is a payment provider. So if you're running an online shop, if you're trying to do just about anything online, like your options are PayPal, and basically Stripe. Like that's pretty much it. Like might be like one or two really small ones, but Stripe is the way to actually get paid. And so now they're actually jumping in and saying, you know what, we don't agree with this stuff, so we are basically not going to support it. Again, you don't have to like him. You don't have to agree with it. You could say, you know what, Trump deserves everything that is coming his way, and that's fine. What I'm trying to point out is that we're starting to weaponize money. And we started as United States to weaponize the US dollar and the SWIFT payment. What is that causing? Well, it's causing and creating an ability or the decisions for places like China and Russia and India and Brazil and the rest of the world to say, up yours, United States. Take your dollar and shove it where the sun don't shine. We're creating our own currencies. We're creating our own economy. We're creating our own way to trade stuff. And China actually started doing that stuff by creating different agreements and saying, hey, Russia, wait a minute. I am doing business with you, right? I, the China, I'm doing business with you, the Russia, but we have yuan, you have ruble, yet we are trading in dollars. Would you like to come up with a different way to trade? Because US is screwing you and it's screwing us and we don't like it. And Russia was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So that's what's starting to happen, right? So we're seeing this happen now with the tech, with the platforms and so on. And I know that there's this whole big, they own everything, because think about it. If you get banned from Facebook, which by the way, it's not just Facebook, right? It's that WeChat thingy, it's the Instagram thingy, it's the Facebook. So you're banned from a bunch of things. Then Twitter takes you out. That cuts off your bunch of your communication. And now you're basically left with Google. And if Google cuts you off, like you're done. You might as well just shut the doors and go home. Like that's it. That's it. So the ability for them to control us is really big. Now, we also have the other piece that is happening, and is deplatforming of Parler. So there's a good, there's a bad, and there's a point to this whole thing, right? And the point to this whole thing, again, Parler is one of those things that after the, it was the social media Parler that basically was being used as a sort of I guess the right wing, the conservative sort of competitor to Twitter. And what happened? Well, after the whole January 8th fiasco with Trump and stuff, Parler basically was shut down. And what happened? Well, it's a benefit to it because they're shut down. Gab is actually picking up users and getting 600,000 new users yesterday alone. So let's kind of take a look and sort of what's going on. Well, they basically put in, and of course, the Google first said, you know what? Parler, we're not supporting you in a store. Okay, cool. You couldn't download it. You can get a new user, but the users could actually communicate with themselves. Then they were hosted on Amazon cloud infrastructure, and Amazon controls a third of it. Google controls the other third, and then the rest of it is, I don't know exactly, but I probably should, but I don't. So they control a third, and they basically, and they're, Microsoft, sorry, yeah, duh. Anyways, right, so they are huge, and so you're not with one of these guys, they cut you off, you are SOL, right? And down, up creek, that bad creek, no paddle, no nothing. So they basically took them off and said, you don't have any cloud hosting starting on Sunday. Well, okay, that means nobody can download it. Now you lost your server, which means nobody can use it. Game over, you're out of business. That's it. That's it. And that's just because a couple of the companies decided, we didn't like what happened, and that's fine, right? But they decided that they were going to control this stuff. So don't tell me they're not too huge, because again, you don't have to agree with it. I don't agree with what happened. I don't agree with people dying and getting hurt. I don't agree in storming in. I believe that there's civil ways to restore peace and justice and to talk about things. But unfortunately, we are creating bigger problems. And I think right now, this sort of quick solution feel good is a huge problem for me, for the things that I believe in, which is the freedom of speech, which is the right to assembly, which is all these different things. I don't have to agree with your speech. I don't have to agree with your assembly, but you have a right to it. And we are seeing this being violated left, right, and center with the giant companies. So interestingly piece is that the free speech social network Gab weathered a similar onslaught from Silicon Valley in 2018. So what happened? Well, they were basically kicked off and forbidden and sort of said goodbye to everything. So to stay online, they basically relied on Bitcoin overpayment processor and built federated servers. So rather than stop from somebody else who was sold the stats on the end, they basically said, we're going to do this all on our own. So they went out, bought their own servers, they have them, and nobody can ban them, nobody can take them away. And now they're basically just saying that that's the only way you can take control over the internet. So this is the one of the interesting pieces. And of course, then they're relying on Bitcoin and saying, thankfully, there's Bitcoin, which is free speech money. And that's one way that we've survived, because people were able to pay us and help us out. So if this is not a huge story for the Bitcoin and for decentralization, I don't know what is. But this is not where it ends. There's actually more to it. So in this particular article, we're looking at the pirated academic database Sci Club. Let me make this bigger so that you can maybe see this easier. And is now on uncensorable web. So what happened? Well, this particular website has been faced with repeated domain name revocations and being taken down and removed and removed and removed. And finally, the founder decided that I'm done. I am going to register my website on the distributed domain names network Handshake. So they went out and solved this problem over here. And so now their worldwide database of academic publications, which pulls the research papers from under the paywalls of academic magazines and uploads them to the internet for everyone to download and read. And they're using Handshake. So without going into like what Handshake is and how to use it, I mean, it's basically decentralized domain name server. That's it. Like, you can't take this piece away. And so the reason that I think that this is really important and crucial is that as the big companies, big tech companies like Stripe, like Facebook, like Google, like Amazon, and all of that start to flex their muscles, just like United States started to flex their dollar muscles, saying, look at us. We take over the world. We are the world police. We are the world bank. We are the world. And we tell you how to play. And the world is saying, middle finger for you, man. I don't think so. We're not doing that. We're not going to play that game. So I think we're going to see more and more people rise. An unfortunate piece is all of these things that are happening are dividing the left and the right and creating this giant gap in the middle that I don't know if the two parties will ever be able to see eye to eye and connect. And a lot of it has to do with poor leadership from our government officials. Fully putting it out there. And it also has to do with the poor leadership from the technology and utilizing technology as a weapon to basically punish those that we don't believe in and voices we don't want to hear, and rewarding those that we do believe in and we do want to hear, so that we all can have one opinion. Nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, nothing wrong with that. If somebody went to the doctor and the doctor said, we got to amputate, would you just say, yeah, sure, doc, like, let's go, take both of them? Or would you say, I need a second and third opinion. I'm sorry. I'm going to need to somebody that maybe says a different point of view. It's important for us to take different points of view, even when it's hard, even when we disagree with the whole thing, because in all honesty, that is the only way forward. And it's the only way that we can actually become smarter, because when we all think and see one way and we all run to one side of the boat, guess what? The boat flips and it capsizes. I don't know about you, but I don't want that to happen to me or to us as a society or the economy for that matter. So I believe that decentralization is going to be huge, and things like, unstoppable domains and IPFS and Handshake and a bunch of the other stuff that is being, Filecoin and stuff, right? Like the file stuff. All of those things that are being built, those are going to be huge. and it's going to be powered by Ethereum, by Bitcoin, by the payments through all of those different things, and it's going to be absolutely huge. So when I look at all of that stuff and kind of see what's coming around the corner, I get even more bullish about crypto. And these small price movements of, 42 to 30,000, you're like, I lost $12,000. Who cares, man? Who cares? Because this is going to be huge, and it's going to be the future. Because as more people get kicked off and booted from things like Facebook and Google and Amazon, AWS, right, and Microsoft ends up doing stuff, although they haven't been talking about any of that stuff. But as we see those things happen, we will see that more and more people will start saying, wait a minute, it's time for me to go in and find my own servers and find better ways. And, like, I know for me, I always thinking, especially as a business, like when your server gets taken down, like nobody can find you. You are done. So yeah, having multiple ones and owning the damn things and not going, I know everybody, when we were building our stuff, everybody's like, oh, just go with the Amazon, go with Amazon. I'm like, no. I want my own damn servers, and I want to go decentralized. I need both. I need both because I don't want anybody to ever be able to vote for what I can and cannot do, for what I can and cannot say. Now, am I big on saying we should promote hate and that kind of stuff? No, absolutely not. I don't agree with that stuff at all. And but I also don't agree that you can or cannot tell me what I can and cannot buy with my money. What money is or is not, what does or doesn't have value, what I do or don't like, what colors I can or cannot wear, what I can and cannot eat. Like, no, it's mine, and I get to control all of that stuff. So one of the other pieces that I think it's very important, which drives the point home, and the last bit of news for the day is having to do with the mining. So Washington State is saying, oh my gosh, Bitcoin is going up, and we are very concerned about Bitcoin mining boom and the miners coming in, and those darn Chinese, they come in, and I swear that's what it says in the article. And they are going to come in and they're going to destroy everything, and we don't like it, and they're going to put our public utility district in high alert, and we are watching for everybody and watching for higher bills, and we're going to police. And I'm like, really? So they are very much against it. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, hey, they're putting in a bill saying, we want miners to come to us. Hey, there's a little guy called Kentucky. We have resources. Electricity is cheap. Come on over. So for every time that this is part that drives it home. Now, this is not law quite yet. There's just a bill that was introduced a couple days ago that basically says we want to reward folks. So we come on in, we would exempt you from paying the commercial currency miners tax, sales tax, or excise tax. Like, we're going to save all of that stuff. We want to become a national leader in crypto mining. We want to attract these rigs. We want to be part of the revolution and evolution. And how exciting is that stuff? So they are basically doing whatever they can. And that's the interesting piece when you kind of think about Bitcoin and crypto on the global scale and all of this decentralization versus centralization. This is the part that I keep on saying, that Google can shut you down, IPFS is going to welcome you. And more people are shut down on Google and Facebook and Twitter and Amazon. More people go and jump into IPFS and unstoppable domains and Handshake and Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that network goes even stronger. And once you switch, you will never go back, because it's so much better, it's so much faster, it's so much more exciting, and it's just mind-blowingly, amazingly awesome. And as that happens, more and more people go and switch. And so now you see the strong and powerful that thought that they can control everything starts to evaporate. It doesn't happen overnight. And it won't happen overnight, but it will happen over time. It will definitely and absolutely happen over time. And we're seeing the same thing that we've been talking about, and you likely heard other people talk about, that, will the countries ban crypto? Sure, they can. But should they? Because for every one country that bans it, there's going to be a few more that say, come on in. We want you. come on in. I'm going to roll out the carpet for you. And companies and wealthy people will just move on over. And if you want to learn more about how all of this stuff works, and, probably one of my favorite pieces of fiction, of art, of written sort of prose of how this works out is the Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, right? So you gotta go and read it. It's a big book, but it does point out the big, sort of problematic piece. What happens when you start thinking, and going down the wrong direction? All of the smart and productive people go where they want to be treated well and where they are treated well, and you don't want to see what happens. So we're seeing this happening in places like California. We're seeing this happening with with the Bitcoin. We're seeing this happening with the technology and communications and platforms. And so we're seeing this happening all over the place, and I think it's a very important piece for all of us to be aware of and pay attention to. So I hope that this was helpful to you. I know I went a little bit more on the sort of like a chatting side of things, and going down my rant, if you would, but I really truly believe that crypto is a solution for a lot of things. When I first started considering getting into crypto and stuff, this was like 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know, but when I got into it 4 years ago, when I got into it, I used to think about the whole like just payment and stuff. And then as I started to get into it and start to learn more, I am thinking this actually has more to do with like everything, and not just payment. Payment is a small portion of it. I mean, this solves a lot of our problems, and for a lot of people, and it is something that is going to be absolutely massive in this decade. So it is something to pay attention to. And again, if you're focused on the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year spectrum of things, these small price movements of 20% down, 30% down, 40% down, 200% up mean absolutely nothing. Because where, all of the big old movements that seem huge to us right now, it's going to look flat on a chart. It's going to look flat on a chart if you are even going to be looking at the chart the way that we're looking at it right now, right? Because as the comparison, because what do we compare BTC to now? USD, right? Well, what happens when USD is no longer USD, right? When it's something else? Well, we're going to be looking at a brand new chart all over again. And then, how many of you even look at the USD? Unless you might look at it if you're into the finance and stuff and really interested about it. And if you live in Europe and you have to constantly exchange your currency to the US dollar and stuff, like, you're fully aware of what the exchange rate is. But for those of you living in the United States, getting paid in US dollar, paying your tax bills in US dollar, shopping online with US dollars, how many of you go in and take a look at on consistent basis where US dollar is in comparison to the other prices? You don't see a channel like this one or so many other ones that were like, look, the dollar ticked on up 10%, like what we do with crypto, because the dollar is sort of the main thing that we live with. Now, think about if you were to get paid in Bitcoin, and you paid your taxes in Bitcoin, and you ordered food in Bitcoin, and like everything happened in Bitcoin. Well, I guess my show is going to have to do something completely different, because we're not going to be talking about that stuff, because nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. So that's sort of the mind shift, the perception shift that you really got to think through. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate you. So this is the last episode for about week to 10 days. I have to go away, so we won't be doing shows for a little while, but I will see you absolutely when I come back. And who knows, we'll see how the whole like up and down, what actually happened, and which of the three scenarios rolled out and happened with Bitcoin. So do sign up so that I will actually see you when I come back. Until then, stay forever money blessed, and do remember, you are only one deal away.